Hey, everybody, welcome to episode number 61 of the Debt-Free Dad podcast. Today, I've got a special guest, Tiffany, and also her husband, who is not present, Matthew Richard. They joined Roots, which is my membership program helping people reduce financial stress, save money, and pay off debt. And they joined back in October, just 3 months ago. And since joining, they have already saved and paid off well over $14,000 combined. Now, how did they do that in just 3 months? Well, you're about to find out. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Debt-Free Dad podcast, where we're helping normal, everyday people learn how to save money and kick debt so they can live a happier and stress-free life. Now here's your host, Debt-Free Dad, Brad Nelson.
Hey, how's everyone doing today? You can find me on Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, and Instagram. Just search Brad Nelson Debt-Free Dad, and I would love to connect with you on one of those social platforms. So as you guys know, a part of what we do here on this podcast is once a month, we take time out to bring on normal, hardworking individuals who want different for their finances and showing you that a lot of the simple concepts and the processes that we share here of the Debt Freedom Success Path actually work, and they work for everybody. If you're willing to put in the work that we're going to teach you, learn the processes, you will see amazing results over time. And today I'm love to welcome Tiffany and also her husband, who is not present, Matthew Richard, to the show. They have been together since high school and are now married and have 3 kids. Teddy, who is 4, Andrew, almost 3, and Samantha just turned 1. I bet they have their hands full with those 3, right? Tiffany works at a fingerprinting company and is also a part-time direct sales consultant. And Matthew is a supervisor of centralized scheduling at a local hospital. She says that they were doing pretty good with money until they bought their house back in 2017, and they put over $30,000 on credit cards for repairs and upgrades. Tiffany then had 2 medically troubling pregnancies that caused her to take some extended unpaid leaves from her job, making them rely more and more on those credit cards. We then got so far behind, she says, that we didn't know how to catch up, let alone get ahead. They joined Roots in October of 2020 to get started, and today she's going to share how much has changed for them in just such a short period of time. Tiffany, it is so awesome to have you as part of this show. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So, but before, you mentioned, we kind of mentioned in the intro and you gave us a little bit of a bio about yourself. You mentioned, back in 2017, that's when things kind of started to get a little bit more on the rough side from a financial standpoint. But can you go back even further? How did you learn about money growing up, and how did that affect kind of how you handled your finances as you became an adult and as you started to kind of do this adult life stuff?
Right. So my parents always talk about how they were poor when I was growing up. So we didn't go out and do a whole bunch of stuff. We, cooked meals at home every single night. We always had, dinner at the table, all as a family. And I don't remember it that way. I am such a daddy's girl that anytime I asked for something, I got it. So it was to me, money didn't really matter. It didn't matter how much money you had in the bank, because if you wanted something, you could just go out and get it. And so I think when I started working, it was, okay, I knew how much money I had. I knew what I could spend money on. If I couldn't afford something, I would just go ask my parents to buy it for me or give me a loan that I wouldn't ever necessarily have to pay back, right? And then we got married and we were still kind of on top of that and, making sure we had enough money and we had our bills paid and everything. And then we bought the house and that just kind of went all downhill.
Now, you had mentioned that you and your husband, you guys have known each other for a long time, since high school, right?
So we've been dating since high school. We've actually known each other since the 3rd grade.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So this goes way back.
Yeah,
so was he, what was his, have you guys talked about that? What was his upbringing with money, and did that play a role into your, your relationship and your finances prior to joining Roots, do you think?
So his parents, I don't think ever had a credit card. If they did, they had maybe one. They just always, they were both bankers and for a long time. And then my father-in-law is now an accountant for, a mobile company. And so I think that aspect of things, my husband was always very much, okay, we can't afford it this time, but we can afford it next time. We'll, work it into the budget, and we'll think about getting it next time. And then when we bought the house, and there were certain upgrades that we had to do, like the kitchen, because the kitchen was, the sink was not installed correctly. And so it was like all molded out and rotted, and we needed new flooring and all of that stuff, that it was just like, okay, we'll do like this much through this company for this much a month, and like this much through this company, and then this much through this company.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh.
So did you guys do all those repairs right when you first bought the home?
Yeah.
You did.
So we completely remodeled the kitchen. We didn't go through a company for that, though. We went down to IKEA. So we tried to stay budget friendly. So
Sure.
We went down to IKEA, and we bought the cabinets, and we bought everything, and we installed them ourselves. We have family friends who are super handy, and so they came over and did it. We had to refloor the entire downstairs, and then the house that we're in, it's a little over 1,200, 12,000, that would be a huge house, 1,200 square feet.
Okay.
And it had wall heaters. That's all it had. And so the people that had it before us, they were renters, and their December electric bill was $700 because they had wall heaters to heat up this entire house.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, I'm not about to pay $700 a month. So we ended up getting those ductless heaters and air conditioners. And so that was like 20 grand right there to get those installed all over the house. But we were like, okay, if we take, $20,000 out in loans, and it's, $210 a month, and we spend, $100 on electricity for that month, we're still under that $700. So we're still ahead. Like, that was the mentality of it.
Yeah. Right.
So it was like, we're still ahead, but it was like, looking at what the previous people paid, but it wasn't like in our budget, we're ahead. And so I think that was like, we kind of dove headfirst into buying a house and getting everything the way that we wanted it.
Yeah.
That we didn't necessarily think about what that was going to mean, down the line.
Long term. Right. Yeah. So how soon after you guys did these upgrades and things did some of that, stress arrive in your life where things were just like, okay, this this isn't going to be going well?
We actually found out that we were pregnant with our second son when we were in the middle of moving into the house and doing the renovations.
Okay.
So we, 9 months? 9 months into buying the house, we realized that we had maybe rushed into things and weren't necessarily, ready to do that yet. But I think it was, so we were living with my parents in they have an attached mother-in-law in their house, like a 700 square foot 1 bedroom. And we were like, okay, we've got 1 kid, now when we were thinking about having another, we were like, okay, this is going to be too small of a space for a family of 4. And then it was the first house that we looked at. It was at the absolute top of our budget that we could afford, that we were pre-financed for.
Yeah. And this also was the time where she got like this, I don't want to say, but they talk about how when you get money, you get like, oh, yeah. So she was a 911 dispatcher. So we both went from Starbucks salary to this salary that was like, ooh, where did all this come from?
Yeah. It was like all of a sudden making $15 an hour more. And I was like, sweet, we can finally get the house. And then it was like, oh, that $15 an hour doesn't really mean a whole lot when you have $30,000 in debt on top of a $300,000 mortgage.
Yeah.
And so
I love that the two of you are being so candid about that, though, because it's so true. I think we see that a lot. It happened in my own life. You get that increase in salary, and then what happens? Your lifestyle goes up, right? and nothing really ever improves financially, because it's like now you just went and took that whole salary and just improved your life, right?
Right.
Same thing with the house. I think there's a lot of people who get themselves into a home purchase and they don't really quite understand. They look at the payment, we can afford the payment, but then it's like all the other stuff that kind of comes with it, and it can be somewhat of a surprise, as you've mentioned, Tiffany. So, great stuff. So as you guys did this, now you eventually heard about Roots. Like, what was the main decision for you two to say, you know what, maybe this is something that we need to consider joining? Like, what was behind that decision?
I actually did both of the Roots 1 hour things. And the first time we were, let's see, was I pregnant with Sam the first time? No, because I joined after I had Sam. So,
Yeah, she did.
but I was on leave from work still when I did the first Roots like intro session. And so it was like, okay, we really can't even afford to, put food on the table right now because I was, I was unpaid. And so then with the second time, I was like, babe, this is probably something that we really need to start thinking about. Like, we really need to, we've sat down with my parents and been like, okay, budget, think about this, similar to the debt snowball of, getting things paid off so that you can, focus on the next one. And then it was like, we had already been in that debt consolidation plan that I had asked you about.
Yep.
And so it was like, we're already focusing on this. We're fine. We don't have to worry about it. And then after that second extended leave with my daughter, it was like, okay, we really need to do something. And so I think after sitting through that second session, I was like, this is something that we, absolutely need to think about doing. And
I know this has improved our communication a lot. Like I told some people before, I would say, no, we can't do it. And she would, I don't want to get on her, but she would say, no, we're going to do it anyway. Okay.
It goes back to that whole, whenever I wanted something, I got it.
It goes back to that whole thing. And now this is actually I think, improved our communication a lot with the finances, where she can say, no, okay. It goes back to needs versus wants. Okay. Do we want that? Yes. But do we have 2 fully functional cars right now? No. So we don't need a new car.
Right.
Right.
And so the program has improved our communication a lot with the finances.
Awesome. So did either one of you have any initial hesitations when you first joined, or were you guys both kind of like, we're just going to do this?
I was like, well, I was excited that she wanted to do something. So
Love that.
and I was always, so when you talked about, you didn't want to talk about in the program, when you talked about, you didn't want to talk about it because you were too scared to know. That was me. Like, I knew we were not good.
Yeah.
And then like we would have our guilty pleasures that you talked about, it could be going to the grocery store. So I do majority of the grocery shopping. I enjoy it. My wife does not. And in the program you talked about, how, you would go there and you would say, I would spend way too much money grocery shopping, long story short.
Yeah.
I would be like, oh, the kids would need it. And that would be my
justification for purchasing it.
Okay, no, they already have that snack. They already have food. I don't need to buy extra.
Or if you bring kids grocery shopping, never bring kids grocery shopping. They see it on the shelf and it goes in the cart. And then you have like a meltdown over, no, baby, you can't have that. But it's like, so then you just break down and you end up buying it. It's like your story about the toy that you wanted.
Yeah.
And it was like, if you, throw a big enough meltdown, mom and dad will just buy it for you anyways, right?
Absolutely. So you guys joined Roots. And so can you guys share, because you guys have only been doing this 3.5 months. You guys are still kind of brand new to this, the whole process, but you guys have made some amazing progress. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But what were some of the things that you learned early on that really made a significant difference for the two of you, you think?
I think it's just more, not necessarily the communication aspect of it, because that's obviously a big thing of it, but the sitting down and like looking at your budget every month and then daily sitting down and like seeing what's being spent out of your bank account. Like I had, after we joined, my purse got stolen and someone spent like $600 on my debit card. And so then I set up text message notifications so that every time something over $15 is spent, I get a text message about it so that like I'm aware. And the amount of text messages that I was getting during the day from my bank account was absolutely terrifying. And so it was like, oh my gosh, that's only over $15. Now, if it's like we have a Sonic right down the street and we would stop every day on the way home and get drinks. That's like $2 and something, but you do that every single day and you're not getting that notification because of it. It's like, oh, what's being spent that you're not necessarily consciously thinking about all the time. And so that was definitely big, because it was like, oh, if I need to go buy something, I check the bank account to make sure that we have the money. And if we don't, okay, let's see how we can move the money around that's there to be able to get it.
And then she wouldn't tell me where I would have bills coming out. And then we got, so now it's with the program with sitting down monthly, we actually have, set. So I get paid biweekly.
Yep.
Yeah, biweekly, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then she gets paid twice a month, standard days. So now with us sitting down with the monthly budget is this, we can say, okay, no, this bill is going to come out, like the electricity, all that other stuff is going to come out, this pay. So then she knows, hey, I got all this money, but in reality,
I don't have all this money.
Yeah, you fall for that trap of looking at the bank account number, but not associating that numbers, that those numbers are assigned to stuff already, right?
Right.
That's great. Those are some fantastic wins. And I remember, Tiffany, one of the reasons why I invite you on the show is one of the reasons why you kind of talked about this death by 1,000 cuts almost. Like, it was all those small purchases that you saw that were adding up you were just like blown away by, wow, if I just make some slight changes, how we can make some progress. So talk a little bit about what you guys have been able to save and pay off just in the last 3.5 months. What have you guys been able to accomplish?
So I think our first big one was our cars. So we were lucky enough to be given a car by my grandpa, and it was it was a gift, but we were like, okay, I'm not going to just take a car from you, right? Because now you don't have a car, not that they have to get around anywhere. But so we said, okay, we're going to pay your property taxes in November. So then it was, okay, how do we come up with the $1,200 to do the property taxes? And then my car had broken down, like the engine exploded. There was no way that I could do anything with it the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in 2019, my car exploded. So my aunt bought a car for me, but we were making the payments on it.
Okay.
And so we now had 3 cars that we didn't necessarily need, but we had to have 2 of them that were big enough to fit 3 car seats in the back.
Right.
So we ended up selling his car, and we used the money that we got from his car to pay off both of the other 2 cars that we had. So right now we have no car payment, which is super nice, because not having to have a car payment and not having to worry about that aspect of it. And then we were in that debt consolidation plan that had like everything from the house and a couple other credit card things that we had. We're down to, I think, 1 account on that debt consolidation plan. So we just recently paid off the last one, which was about $700. Mm-hmm. So I think we're sitting at about $7,500 paid off in credit cards.
That's amazing.
And then we had to just recently, as in like the 13th of last month, we had to make a homeowner's insurance claim because a truck pulled the power line out of our house, and it did like $13,000 worth of damage to the house.
So we had a big windstorm up here in the Northwest.
Yeah.
And
the power lines were like super low
the next morning, and it wasn't up to regulation. And they actually just redid the road out front of our house. So it was like we lost the cable on it was.
Yeah. So we lost the power line. It took the weatherhead out, the power meter box. It actually tore our, what is that thing in the garage?
The electrical, the whole box.
The fuse box.
Oh my goodness, wow.
The wall. And so it was like, okay, well now we have a $500 deductible that we have to worry about. And so I, in my head, immediately heard your voice of make a list of what would be a reasonable, emergency to pull out of the emergency fund. And it was like, okay, that's, our emergency fund.
Yes, absolutely.
What it's there for is our $500 deductible.
That you said the first thing is to get the $1,000 in the savings account. So that was our first thing. So sorry, backing up a little bit. So first thing we did is we sat down and she would have a subscription. So one big thing was the cable. Okay. So we cut down to I was like, okay, well, we don't really watch all these channels. So we saved
$100
there, right there. And then it was, okay, what other stuff can we cut out of?
Right. like my DoorDash getting free delivery for $10 a month. Like, do I really use this enough to need that $10 a month, you know? And so it was like, we took all of that and built that emergency fund up, just like you said, like it as quick as possible, you know, get that built up. So luckily we had that there. Cause I mean, had it been, you know, September of last year, we would have been screwed because we wouldn't have had anything in savings and we wouldn't have been able to do it. But so then, so we had to use that. But so with my bonus that I got, my $800 bonus, that went straight back into our emergency fund so that we didn't have to worry about, okay, now we got to, you know, find a way to build this back up. But
yeah, that's awesome. And that's what I was just going to ask you, because there's probably people listening to this saying, man, if you guys have been able to, you know, literally, if you add up the total savings and total paid off that you guys done in the last 3.5 months, it's well over 14 grand. I mean, that's impressive. So naturally, a person listening to this is going to say, what did you cut out? Now, Matthew, you said things like cable. You guys have talked about maybe even going out to eat. Was there anything else that made a substantial improvement? I mean, you got rid of a car. Like, it's amazing how resourceful people can get once they just kind of get a little bit direction. So can you give a few more tips about what other people can look at in their life?
So her mom is really good. So her mom owns her own business. She's called OCD.
Yep.
Organize, clean, and just declutter. I'm involved. You know, now that I see living a simplistic life, I hate to say it, but it really does make it a whole bunch easier. Like, just there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can probably look in your house that you could sell, and you could easily come up with probably $2,000 worth of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And just taking the time to do it, like literally just set a week out and just doing it. Like literally her office is this desk, a printer, and
my product.
And a product. That's it.
Yep. Love that.
It very simple. Same thing with, like, the kids don't need perfect example. We have 3 kids. They really you do laundry once a week, if that. They really only need 7 days worth of clothes, give or take, with some accidents. They don't need
a whole dresser
full of clothes. So it's really getting to look at, you know, in just simplifying the life is what it comes back to, is getting rid of stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
And we both worked at Starbucks for years. I mean, I worked there for 3 years and he worked there for 5. And so it was like, we were so used to getting the free Starbucks, getting the discounted Starbucks. And then when we left, we were still acting as if we were getting that discount and we weren't. So I think when I calculated it out, we were spending, I don't even want to say it. We were spending like $15,000 a year at Starbucks. And that's terrifying. Like, what you can do with $15,000. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's literally more than the debt that we've paid off in the last 3.5 months. And it's like,
and then
it's not even worth it.
And then to think about it, you know, I did it for 5 years and I'm paying somebody to do what I could do at home.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the part that really got me. It's like, wait, this is like second nature at home. Why am I? Yeah.
Right. Like, we could do this at home for so much cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and again, I think, is there one thing that you can point out? Was it going through Roots as a whole, or was there something specific that helped you kind of make that switch? Because Matthew, you kind of referred to it. You know, you look at life like it can be a lot simpler, and it can also save us a lot of financial stress just by not collecting and having a bunch of stuff that's going to cost us a bunch of money. Was there anything specific in Roots that helped you guys change that mindset? Because in 3.5 months to go from where you're at to where you are today, I mean, that's some significant transformations you guys have made.
I think a lot of it was the communication aspect of communicating together. Because we went through, so before we got married, we went through premarital counseling. Okay. Even the finance day, they didn't really dive into, I think a lot of it was a perfect example, our parents, where you talk about learning finances from the parents. My mom did it all. My dad had no idea. Okay. Her parents, similar situation. They're in a lot of debt now and they're doing to get out. So it wasn't a lot. I think a lot of it was the communication aspect of, okay, sure. No, it's both of our money. We have a joint account. It's there for us to do it. but we need to talk about how we're going to use the money. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that is the number one key to success, is talking to each other about the finances. Literally, it should be a daily conversation.
Yeah.
And before Roots, that never crossed my mind. I think actually what really helped me is your opening module and talking about how looking at money, the whole thing, like it should be the number one priority, basically. We live in a society where money controls everything. I mean,
right.
Plain and simple. So if you don't have it controlled, nothing else is controlled. And I think that's where it really helped us start for, okay, no, this is our money. We need to use it how we want to, basically take ownership and kind of become the boss of the money. I think that's really good, is becoming the boss and not letting other stuff come in and take it.
How does it feel just 3.5 months later, achieving what you guys have looked at? Like, Tiffany, before we get started the podcast, you're like, it's unbelievable, right? Like what we've been able to do in just a short period of time. But talk about the feeling side of it, because sometimes we can get so like attached to the math part of finance. It's like we forget that there's this secondary expense, and it's the emotion that's behind the money. It's the stress, it's the worry, but now you guys have a plan. So can you talk a little bit about how you just feel different today versus when you first started?
Yeah, there's definitely not as much stress. I mean, there would be times where we would be looking at the bank account and we're like, crap, we got these 3 bills that are coming out and we don't have the money. And so it was, we stopped using credit cards when we got into the debt consolidation plan that we were in. And so it was like, okay, we literally don't have a backup for that. So then it was going to family and saying, hey, can we borrow, $100 until we get paid because we've got this bill to pay? Or, can we borrow this much so that we don't get those NSF fees in our bank account because, we just need it for this short amount of time and then we'll pay it back. And it's like that. I hated the feeling of having to ask family to borrow money. I knew that it was my own fault that I didn't have the money. It wasn't that we weren't making the money. It wasn't that we didn't have the money. It was that we were using it on stupid stuff, like, going to Starbucks every single day, possibly twice a day, and, eating out instead of bringing lunch from home from work or,
I want to, the eating out, I think it was really big for us. So when I grew up, eating out was a luxury. Okay. It was like once a month. And then I met her and her family. And like every time I would go over there, we would go out. And so I was like, oh, this is cool. Like this was not what I grew up with. So of course I got into that habit.
Right.
So now I'm going back to what I grew up in. I was like, no, this is what we're having.
We have food at home.
We have food at home.
Like
I'm making it.
I understood what my mom was saying when it was like, oh, Mom, can we stop at McDonald's? No, there's food at home. Like, yes, there is food at home. Like,
yes. And then, and going back to like my perfect example, my mom was very big on deals and
couponing.
Yes. No worries.
So I'm totally like going back to that roots now. I'm like, oh no, we're gonna buy 2 chickens this month because it's on sale.
Yeah.
And having it in there so we actually have the food. Like, no, we have food here to meet in it, and then
yeah. Like we started getting the Sunday paper so that I could get the coupons, and then I have like 6 apps on my phone so that I can get like rebates from here and rebates from there. And it's like what was your mom's thing was the 11th commandment is that thou shalt not pay full retail.
Thou shalt not pay retail. And
it's like that is the 11th commandment in our house now.
So I'm going back to some of the things, like I don't want to say, but I'm grateful for the life I was raised, but it definitely was not extravagant.
Right.
They had to do what they did, and I'm grateful for it. And, I'm going back to some of the roots that they taught me.
Right.
And, like, no, there's food here. Like, and I think the kids like it too. Especially the oldest now, because they're like, oh, let's go cook with Dad in the kitchen.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's giving us definitely more time with the kids too.
Yeah. Well, and then teaching the kids, you know, because you grew up with, I don't even think mom and dad ever had a credit card when they were younger.
Yeah, they never.
And so it's like, it was, you worked out of what you had. And then with my parents, it was money doesn't necessarily matter. Like, it's not like you can take it to the grave with you. But then at the same time, it's like, so then you look at the differences in our childhoods and where that came into our marriage. And I want the kids to know, like, you know, money management. And like my parents, they have said that they're proud of us for going through this because we're getting out of debt at such a young age. She's like, my mom's like, I don't want you to get to the point where we are in our 50s, where we're just now getting out of debt and just now working on it. And then that shows the kids, you know, I don't want them to have to get into debt, you know, and, you know, have to dig their way out of a hole that they've created, you know, when they get older. And so if we can teach them that, you know, money is there, but you have to use it wisely and you can't just spend it on whatever you want, that.
And I think going back to the first module that you talk about, where they market debt is really a good thing. I look at the commercials now, I'm like, wow, that is really marketed very good and very positive for people to get into trouble. And they do really good because they could, so I think that's also, I was young, naive. I was like, oh no, we could do this.
Yeah.
Totally like, yeah, we could do it. I'm, you know, like the man. And then I was like, oh. And then before, like, so before when we talked about it, I would be like, oh my God, like literally the beginning of February, I'd be like, oh my God, it's beginning of February. I got to pay all these bills. What are we going to do? And now, because we have the plan, I'm like, oh, it's February. Okay, that's not a problem. And then I already go, so you have a system for the mortgage now. And I was like, oh, sweet. So I can already go pay the mortgage for this month. I don't have to worry about that.
Right.
But like, so that it's been a lot of having the first month was rough for the budget. Like you said, it was rough.
Yep.
But now that we're doing it a couple of months, it's getting a lot better. We're still not perfect by all means,
Right.
But it's getting better. And now I'm seeing what the purpose of the budget, like, okay, no, it's already there.
I think sitting down and like building your budget and like looking at the previous month and writing down like everything that you spent money on. So it was like those, you know, going out and doing groceries and then going out and eating and then all those like individual Starbucks trips and all those trips to Sonic's for sodas. It was like writing that down. I think there was one month that we spent like $1,000 in eating out and groceries. And that was like $400 more than our budget. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this has got to change. This cannot keep happening.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it is, and I think it's the problem with, and I think going back to your cash habit is going good. When you swipe a card, a lot of us are visual. You don't see it. Like it's not physically disappearing versus the budget now because everything electronic now, you know, you can transfer money halfway around the world in 2 seconds. Actually like writing it down so we can visually see it helped us like, okay, no, this is bigger than what it is.
Yeah.
So
part of it, like, yay for technology, but the other part, not really good for.
Yeah. Well, when I think about what you guys have shared so far, I mean, you guys shared so many great things. I mean, as far as just with your kids and just writing down those, I mean, so many things. And I think the one thing that I can kind of focus on that puts you guys under the umbrella of everything that you guys done is that you guys actually opened yourselves up to trying something different and trying something new. And there's a lot of people who hesitate that way, and that prevents them from getting some really great results because they're so used to doing it their way. And I think I got to commend you guys. Like, you guys opened up your home and said, we're going to try this because we need to get some different results. And look at where you're at. And I think for anyone who's listening to this, this is what happens when you kind of get outside your comfort zone and you're willing to try some different things. You're going to get some amazing different results. So I think that's just fantastic. Really, really great. So if you guys had to say to anybody who's on the outside, knowing what you've experienced now and trying some of this stuff, like, what would you say to them if they're like on the fence? Like, does this stuff work? Should I try it? Like, what would your advice be to them on just practicing some of the basic things that we talk about here?
I mean, just do it. Like, jump head first, just head first straight in, because the amount of stress that has been relieved from not having to, double check every single day if you've got money to pay a bill, and asking family or putting more money on a credit card or whatever it is, because you can't get ahead if you are just going farther and farther behind. Like you said, with the zero balance budget, if you are at a negative and you're using credit cards to do that difference, you're never going to get ahead because you're just getting farther and farther behind. So, I mean, that was us. I mean, at first it was, should we do this? Can we, is this something that we can do? And it was, you have to do something different, because if what you're doing right now is not working, you have to try something different. And this was our different. This was what worked for us, because what we were doing before obviously was not working for us. And I mean, and it's not just the planner or the modules, it's the Facebook group. It's everyone's posting their little wins, everyone's posting their struggles. And then it's not just having you, it's having everyone else that's going through it at the same time. And if you post a struggle that you're having, someone's going to have something that you can try, or someone's going to say, I was there, last month, and, you're going to make it through it. You're going to, you're going to get out of it. But having that support system there, and the accountability aspect of it, because the weekly meetups and the monthly budget get-togethers and all of those, of having that accountability there. It's just like if you're starting a new workout or a new diet or something, if you're doing it by yourself, you're never going to succeed. You have to have someone there to support you and to hold you accountable. And that's what you are.
Yeah.
Definitely was it. I think the point for us was what we're currently doing isn't working, and we've tried everything else. So we need to change something. And it's not, if you do the same thing, what is it called?
Insanity.
Yes. Over and over again and expecting the different results.
Yep.
I think that's what it was. I was like, no, we got to do something, because what we're currently doing is not working at all.
Right. Well, and I think one thing that I thought of at the beginning was, if I get into this, I'm admitting my failure. And it's, no, you're not admitting your failure. You are admitting that you want to succeed, and this is how you're going to succeed. So don't see it as a failure that you have to do this. Think of it as, 6 months to a year to 2 years, you're going to be completely debt free, and you're going to be buying what you want with, cash, and you're not going to be in debt anymore. It's going to be amazing. So don't think of it as a failure on your side. It's a success on your side, that you're willing to do something to change your life.
So good, man. I couldn't have ended this interview any better than what you just did, because it's so true. It is so true. So Matthew and Tiffany, you guys have absolutely crushed it. You guys have a lot to be proud of. And I'm just so excited that you guys were able to come on and share a little bit about how you guys were able to make this happen. So again, if you're listening to this, these two are just normal, hardworking individuals here, and they just decided, like they said, to do some things different. And now they're in a completely different spot. Just a little more than 90 days is what it's taken them to get to where they are today. Just think about where they're going to be 9 months from now or 2 years from now, just because they got started. So awesome stuff. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, what's this I see? I thought this was a party! Let's dance!
All right. That means it's time for the celebrations of the show. And by the way, to kick that off, it was just huge. Tiffany and Matthew were just on saving and paying off $14,500 in just 90 days. That is just massively impressive. It is so awesome to have them on. But kicking it off with Shelly Mayo, I actually paid off one credit card. It was only $361 balance, but it was number one on my list of debts to pay off, and it felt really good. Can't wait to tackle the second one on my list of many. And if you caught something about that, notice how she says it feels good. That's what's going to keep you going. And that's why we recommend the debt snowball approach. That's awesome. Great job, Shelly.
Tamara Dutton. This week, I didn't eat out at all. Used to eat out at least twice a day.
That is awesome.
Fantastic.
Good for you. Yep, absolutely.
Melissa Hartwig, my win is a huge one for me. My husband is actually on board. We'll see how he does because he's a spender, but I am so excited he's willing to try.
That is huge. Yep. That is huge. I'm so proud of her because it was a little tough go when she first started, but getting him on board to at least try is just such a big win. So congratulations. Tasha Peterson, I sold an item on eBay that's never been used and has been taking up space for 2+ years. And made an easy $137, which is awesome. Also put another $80 into my emergency fund savings account this past week. So congratulations to you, Tasha. Those are great wins.
Pizza Caramelangos, my win may be very small, but a meaningful step of breaking habits. My son asked me to help him, and I normally give in and help him placing him myself at a disadvantage. Today, I found the strength to say no, and I discussed with him how he should make his income work for him. Best is, I don't feel guilty. That is not a small win.
That is a huge win. And I commented because we do share these in Roots, and that's just a huge win to be able to say no to family. That's killer. That's awesome.
Shanna Skinner, we did not overdraft our accounts this week. We had dinner out only one day, which was planned.
Huge win. That's awesome. Yep. Stopping those overdraft fees and then budgeting for going out to eat. Those are amazing wins. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us here today. We love your feedback, and it also helps us grow our YouTube show. So please give us a like or leave us some honest feedback on this video. And if you want the latest from the show, obviously be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe to our channel. And for the latest resources, or if you want more information on how to kick debt and financial stress, please be sure to check out the links in this video or head over to therealdebtfreedad.com. We'll see you guys on an upcoming show. Take care.